So just off the bat, if you're new here, if you're just coming in, welcome to the stream. My name is Luke, and you're watching Celio's Network. Tonight we're kind of having a community discussion night. I'm talking about the things, I'm talking about a few things. Basically, we're talking about bans that have happened recently for the TPCI jurisdiction standard format, and also the TPC jurisdiction standard format. But the TPC bans seem to have either caused or influenced the TPCI bans. So I want to first bring up, and also anybody in chat has questions or opinions, we'll get to that soon. So Japan doesn't have a scheduled rotation to my knowledge. They don't have, like, we know every August we're getting either a rotation or a rotation announcement, or like that one weird year back 9 or 10 or 11 years ago where we didn't have a rotation. We get an announcement at least. Japan doesn't have a set thing. I've looked everywhere. They don't have an announcement for what's getting rotated. Maybe people in Japan know already. Maybe they assume what's getting rotated. So the last thing that was said was 10 months ago when they had their last rotation, when all of their A block cards were rotated, and that happened in November for them. And that made their format Ultra Prism on, but that happened 3 months after our rotation. But this is the last thing I can find. And this Poke Beach was having a bunch of theory about getting worldwide set releases and worldwide card legality, but of course that never happened. But yeah, so they revealed TPC, which is the Pokemon Company, which is the Japan and accompanied areas jurisdiction over Pokemon, that they get the Japanese cards before we do. They have different formats, they have different tournaments, they have different not regulations, they have different guidelines on how to get to Worlds. They announced last September that they were going to be rotating out all A block cards and going to UPR on in November of last year. So they didn't they haven't made an announcement like this for this year, but they also don't rotate every year. There was a point where they were still playing with Night March in Standard, if I'm not mistaken, when we were already close to the Sun and Moon cards, I believe. But I might be mistaken there. All I know is they don't have a set rotation month. They don't have a rotation every year on the same month or even every year. And there's not always a structure to their rotation. If anybody in chat knows anything that I don't, or if I end up putting this on YouTube and there's someone that wants to leave it in the comments more information, please do. But as far as I know, they do not have a structure or a schedule or anything like that to their rotations in Japan, in TPC. And I don't know anything about a rotation coming up. So I just wanted to preface talking about the bans with that. So we got an announcement on July 30th, which was less than 24 hours. Hang on. So yeah, chat, I'll link all of this for you. So this is the Poke Beach link, and this is the Pokemon.com link. And like I said, if I do put this on YouTube, like if I put the live stream on YouTube, then I'll put all these links in the comments or description or whatever. Okay, so they announced TPCI, the non-Japan jurisdiction of Pokemon, announced the bans on July 30th. I believe it was less than 24 hours after Japan announced these bans for their format, which is essentially Ultra Prism on, but they have more new cards than we do. They have like the set with Togekiss and Alchemy and all of that already. So Japan announced that they were banning Belelba and Bryson Man. If anyone in chat has the announcement from Japan, or like a translated announcement or anything like that, just so I can get the exact wording, that would be great. Okay, so Japan announced that less than 24 hours. TPCI puts this on their website. Announcement date July 30th, which was yesterday. So they're announcing in the standard format they're banning Balelba and Bryson Man and Miss Magius. I was very, very shocked to see both of these cards banned. Expanded format, no changes have been made. Next announcement date, October 23rd. Details of the change. 2 cards were banned in the standard format. The reasoning for these changes is below. 1, these card bans were issued in Japan recently. In an effort to maintain a more global standard format experience, TPCI has also banned these cards. I'll come back to my issues and my comments and everything. Yeah, send the link in chat, Bob McDougal. If it, tells you can, I'll let it through. Control decks and mill decks, strategies that try to discard all the cards from the opponent's deck, have a place in the Pokemon TCG, but when they become too powerful, the play environment becomes less enjoyable. Balelba and Bryson Man has been identified as the card that makes these decks highly effective in tournament play. In an effort to reduce the strength of control decks and mill decks, Balelba and Bryson Man has been banned. Hand destruction decks can be similarly unenjoyable to play against when they consistently achieve their goal. With the addition of Crobat V and Sword and Shield, there are some hand destruction combos with Mismagius, Duskstone, and Reset Stamp that can be achieved more consistently on the first or second turn of the game. In an effort to break up these combos, Mismagius has been banned. There are no major play Pokemon tournaments using the expanded format in the near future, so no cards will be banned from that format yet. Based on recent results, it's clear that there are some issues with the current expanded format environment, but these problems will be addressed in a future update. Tournament results and community feedback. Expanded format will be aggressively monitored. They say that all the time. Alright, Pokemon Japan announcement. We'll open this up and we'll just look at this real quick too. Okay, let's see. So this is translated from Google. Let's see. Pokemon card games limiting the actions of opponents by building decks and playing is aimed at victory, and it is recognized as one of the tactics. Based on that assumption, the 2 cards specified this time, Mismagius and Balelba, may extremely limit the actions of opponents by combining with some other cards, and it may significantly narrow the range of various deck construction and playing, specifically as a card that cannot be used in standard regulation. That's just, they're saying they're banning it. So they're working on new illustration, new artwork, and they're also producing a new design and effect. They will be introduced as soon as possible. And then those cards will be distributed at Pokemon card gyms after October, so that's like league challenges for us, but we don't have those because of quarantine, so yeah. Okay, so anyway, Japan made this announcement. And when did they make this announcement? When is this from? News list. So 7:31.
Thanks for stream tonight. Your recent content on Patreon and have been on point.
Okay, it says it was posted 7:31, and the TPCI one says announced 7:30. So they must have announced so close together that I think they announced so close together that it was already 7:31 in Japan, potentially. I don't know time zones also, I could just be really wrong, but that's what makes sense there. Hey, Bacon Lover, thank you so much for the 100 bits. Thanks for stream tonight. Your recent content on Patreon and YouTube have been on point. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Thank you so much for the support. Really do appreciate it. And also, Bob, thank you for finding me this link. Okay, so yeah. Basically, these announcements were made very, very close together. So, in an effort to maintain a more global standard format experience, TPCI has also banned these cards. We'll start there. In the past, we have not seen a large effort to maintain a more global standard format experience, and this is definitely something that was communicated between them to make these announcements almost uniform. I don't know who remembers this, but when Sword and Shield base was announced, for the first time that I can remember, I was at home on my computer when this happened. the Pokemon Japan site and the Pokemon USA. So the TPC and the TPCI sites both put up the original Sword and Shield teasers at the same time. And that never happens because Japan gets the cards months before we do. They're always like a set and a half ahead of us. So it did look like they were trying to make a global format experience. So they're trying to make a global standard format experience, not all formats, just global standard. Because Japan has 4 formats, we have 2, I think. Okay, so these card bans were issued in Japan recently in an effort to maintain a more global standard format experience. We've also banned these cards. So I'm not a fan of the wording because it's obvious that they were making this announcement together, and it's obvious that they work together. Now, I would love for us to all be on the same page. Like, either US gets accelerated set releases, like every 2 months, or like every 2 months as opposed to every 3 months, or Japan gets elongated set releases like every 4 months instead of every 3 months until we're all on the same track. I would love that, but that's never going to happen because Pokemon Japan wants to release smaller sets and sets within like half starter decks and stuff like that. So that's never going to happen. And if nothing is ever going to happen to make us have a completely global standard format experience, then what's the point of going halfway? I don't understand that. So why would we follow their bans if we're going to play a different format, and we're always going to play a different format? At least that's what it seems like. Now, I'm assuming, but I could be wrong, but so far this assumption makes sense. Next, control decks and mill decks have a place in the Pokemon TCG, but when they become too powerful, the play environment becomes less enjoyable. Belelba and Bryson has been identified as the card that makes these decks highly effective in tournament play. In an effort to reduce the strength of control decks and mill decks, Belelba and Bryson has been banned. Now, I don't like that because, okay, mill and or control have not won a tournament yet in Japan. If they are, or actually, I think it did well when Sword and Shield first came out, but I don't think it won major tournaments, and even if it did, it didn't win like back-to-back-to-back major tournaments. Also note, if they are watching events that aren't official, but are large-scale, such as the Pokemon Japan Nationals Online, and the Limitless Qualifiers and the Limitless Invitational, they'd know that in Japan's UPR through Darkness Ablaze format, which was the PJNO, and in America's or TPCI's jurisdictions, UPR through Rebel Clash, none of these were dominated or won by control decks or mill decks. So that confuses me as well. Also, Belelba and Bryson is not necessarily the card that makes this possible. Oranguru Ultra Prism is probably one of, if not the catalyst for these strategies, and while I like Oranguru because what it originally was probably meant to do, which was act as a card that allows you to take a turn and get back important cards, which it has been used in decks sparingly for that purpose and also to counter stall strategies, it's turned into just the catalyst of control and mill and stall decks. And yeah, and as someone in the chat said, Jane Mershon, mill has been rogue since Dragapult came out, and it isn't going to be good when Guru rotates. Yeah, so we'll get to the rotation part, but you're right. Mill was fairly fringe in the Ultra Prism through Rebel Clash meta, and it was fairly good in the Ultra Prism through Sword and Shield metagame, and that went for Japan and for TPCI. The next bullet point they have: hand destruction decks can be similarly unenjoyable to play against when they consistently achieve their goal. With the addition of Crobat V and Sword and Shield Darkness Ablaze, there are some hand destruction combos with Mismagius, Duskstone, and Reset Stamp that can be achieved more consistently. Now, I really respect this, I do. And they're doing it as a preemptive ban, it seems. But Japan has had Crobat V, and that never happened. So I don't understand this. So Japan has had Crobat V. these Mismagius, these hand destruction decks they're talking about that mimic Trevnor, it seems like they're just trying to get ahead of it and get it out of here before it does something like Trevnor does, when in fact, I think it could actually be like a solid, non-dominant deck. They're saying that because of Crobat V, that it could do something like it does in Expanded Trevnor, where you go Shaman, 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 Dedenne, Lele, pop Milotic, Ace Trainer, you have no hand. They're saying it could do something like that. When in reality, Dedenne, Crobat, you can't scoop up net them. Pop up Mismagius to draw 2 cards is very, very different, at least in my opinion. So, yeah, this... It's hard to read this and think it's 100% the truth, just because Pokemon Japan has more sets than us, and Pokemon Japan has had the sets we're about to have, and these cards didn't affect them. Or, like, Control and Mill were tier 1.5, tier 1 maybe, in Japan's Ultra Prism through Darkness Ablaze meta, but guess what? We're not playing Ultra Prism of Darkness Ablaze meta for a single official tournament of TPCI's jurisdiction of tournaments. Like, yeah, we're playing it for the POG 2020, but TPCI doesn't care about that tournament, and the Pokemon Company Japan sure as hell doesn't care about that tournament. So, and it's not like they're listening to the bans anyway, because it's before the bans are put into effect. So what I'm seeing is Pokemon, what I think is the Pokemon Company Japan did this, and either one, the Pokemon Company told TPCI that they had to make these bans because they are releasing new cards with erratas, and that sounds plausible, right? So if we go back to this article from Pokemon-card.com, or if you didn't know, that's the official Pokemon Japan website, they are releasing new arts with new effects of the cards. So Mismagius is going to have a new effect, and Beluba Bryceman is going to have a new effect. They are releasing these cards physically in Japan. Now, I think that's why they're doing this. They probably, in this scenario, they said they're remaking them, they're designing errata, whatever, new illustrations and whatnot. So in this scenario, they told TPCI, we're making this a global ban because we're releasing new versions of the cards. Now, that doesn't make sense to me because, one, we've never followed Japan's bans to a T before that. And two, we won't get the new versions when Japan gets the new versions, because they are like 3+ months ahead of us. So that doesn't resonate well with me, because if so, I would, if they said, okay, Japan is getting new versions of Beluba, Bryceman, and Mismagius in 3 months, so when that happens, we're also going to ban these cards, and then 3 months later we will get the cards remade. Because I don't think these would be toxic. Also, we're huge point that nobody mentions here is that we're getting a rotation and Japan is not. We don't know if Japan's even rotating this year because they don't say anything about that. But we're getting a rotation, as I explained explicitly in my post-rotation deck guide on YouTube, !YouTube by the way. Mill and Control and Stall are going to be completely new decks if they even exist in the post-rotation standard format of TPCI, because we're losing a lot of stuff. Oranguru Ultra Prism being one of the main cards. Now Mismagius, like I said, I think they're trying to get ahead of it and not have another Trevnor. That would be... Okay, so I should backpedal there. If this was a TPCI only ban, I would say they're trying to backpedal... Not... That's what I'm doing. Let's restart this. Professional Pokemon YouTuber, Mr. Network. If this was a TPCI only ban, I would say they're trying to get ahead of it and stop another Trevnor from happening. But Crobat V has been out in Japan already for a while. and they've been playing tournaments, and they've been, you know, putting out Japanese YouTube content, articles, whatever, invitationals, and this ridiculous combo that's consistently being achieved, apparently, or in theory could be achieved, is not happening. So either it's not strong enough when it does happen, or it's not happening that consistently, and either of those just meet in the middle, it would be fine. And maybe we would have a tier 2 deck with Mismagius, because this card is not being used currently in America. This card is not being used currently in Japan. So Mismagius, I don't understand, and Belelba, I understand it for Japan, if they don't want that many mill and control decks happening, but I don't understand why we have to bring it here when we're rotating, like, our sets, you know, because that's what we do every August, we're rotating sets. So yeah, let's see what the chat has to say about it. Let's see. These bans make no sense. For Japan, I think the Belelba ban makes sense. I don't think the... So, basically, I'm 1 out of 4 here. If each ban counts as its own ban, so we have 2 bans in Japan and 2 bans in TPCI, I'd say the Belelba ban in Japan makes sense, but the other 3 do not. The Mismagius Japanese ban and then the TPCI, both of the bans. I don't agree with 3 out of 4 of them, basically. They want a global ban list, but their expanded ban list is different than ours. Yeah, and Japan also has, Palace format, is it called? They have another weird one as well. It's kind of like Legacy. But also, we're working towards... So, in an effort to maintain a more global standard format experience, it's hard to say a global standard format experience if it's not exactly the same. Like, it's definitely one thing if we were both playing with the same sets. At that point, just make the ban lists match. But we're not playing with the same sets, and I don't think we ever will be. Because, in my opinion, from what I've seen, it looks like Pokemon Company Japan is just kind of stubborn in their ways. Or they want it how they want it, and TPCI can't accelerate the sets ahead. So, it's just stuck like this in limbo. We need to both be on the same releases. I don't think it'll ever happen. I hate Japan gets everything before us on top of a different rotation with what standard. Yes, it's very frustrating. Banning Mismagius makes no sense at all. It hasn't been good since Roxy Chomp was a thing. Yeah, actually... Funny you mentioned that. So I did a little searchy search on limitlesstcg.com/cards, and I searched for Mismagius Unbroken Bonds, and it didn't have a single placement out of all 4 Limitless qualifiers. Now, of course, Quarantine ended tournaments shortly after Costa Rica, but it was used in Costa Rica in February, and it wasn't used for a month between January and February. It was used in Bochum, and then it was used right before Christmas at this foreign regional, but it was used in 1 deck, and in expanded it was used in some weird decks, but yeah, it was used in 1 deck for a very long time, for 1 set worth. Not a very long time really, but it was used for like 3 months in 1 deck, and that's basically it. Banning ADP would make Standard so much better. ADP was strong when Sword and Shield base came out, but it's not even a problem anymore. It wasn't a problem in Rebel Clash because people started playing VMAX cards, and that's like a whole other like discussion, but basically having strong evolutions makes ADPZ not as oppressive. It makes it need to run really, really hot, I think. Because ADPZ can 100% beat VMAX decks, but it needs to run really well. Or they could have just made Channeler Ranger. Like Jolly Flying Man here said, they don't need to ban ADP, just reprint Ranger. ADP is still played and expanded even though Ranger is a card, and supporters are even harder to come by in Standard. So if they just made Channeler an exact reprint of Ranger, then that would have been fine as well. How would Mismagius be if it had the same effect but your opponent didn't take a prize? It would be a fairly solid draw support that might not even see play, because you have to set up stage 1, and like the whole thing is like you can play, it's a draw support that has a strategy to it. If it was just there to draw cards, I'm not even sure if it would be used, to be honest. But that's something interesting to think about. Like, it's good because it's a draw support that's also getting you towards this counter strategy where you can use counter gains and stamp your opponent down and things like that. Mill can exist post-rotation. Yeah, Mill was going to be like a rogue deck or like a low-tier deck that we had to try hard as heck to make work, even with Belelba. Now I think it's just completely gone because Belelba's gone. Now Eternatus is too OP. I don't think it's OP because, like, it loses all energy acceleration in our post-rotation, except for Turbo Patch. Like, it can't use the Darkrai Prism plus Weavile GX stuff anymore. So it's, like, really prone to Yell Grunts and Crushing Hammers. So, like, and also to Wondrous Labyrinth to an extent, to any energy disruption, like, going first, and then, like, Centiskorch V can discard an energy going second. So I don't think Eternatus is OP. I still think it's just a solid deck, like tier 1 good deck, but not best deck in format. But it was really, really nice that we could have Belelba techs and decks if they chose to play them. It's always better when you choose to allot a spot in your deck to have a better matchup against another good deck. It's always more fun to have deck building options like that, and they just took one away. Like, we haven't had a lot of tech options like we used to have in the game, and now they just took another away from us. So they want to protect Eternatus. So I don't think this ban is not to make Eternatus better by any means. I would 100% say that. Because Japan already has Eternatus, the deck is doing fine. I do not think at all that this Belelba ban is to help Eternatus do better, the cards sell well, etc. But it could definitely look like that. You think it'll happen with the letter designation? Yeah, so the A block thing, so cards have either A, B, C, or D, and then Japan rotated by the A block cards, and even American cards have that now too, or TPCI cards, I should say. So it would be great if we could all get onto the same block rotation, but I don't know if that'll happen soon. TPCI doesn't like the possibility of Mismagius being able to give your opponent a 2-card hand to turn 1 before they do anything, same reason Let Loose was banned. But Mismagius was able to do that this whole time, and now we have 1 extra draw card. I don't know. Like, just because we have Crobat, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think ADPZ is a problem anymore. This would only make sense if we were getting counter energy back. It could. It's kind of sad that they killed Mill and Dragapult in 1 month. Yeah, yeah, I mean, Dragapult just happened naturally because of the set, and that's just like the card designers in Japan. Obviously, TPCI does not design any of the cards. The Pokemon Company designs the cards, or their department that's made for that. And I actually am working on a whole video about the card design. But Yeah, that might take a while though, because there's a lot I need to look into for that. But what was I saying? Yeah, basically, I don't like when that happens, and I feel like it doesn't happen too often in the Pokemon game. But we got a main set with Dragapult, and then the next set in Japan, I believe, was Eruption Walker, which was Vikavolt and Centiskorch, and then the set after that was Eternatus. So in Japan, where they're designing the cards, the next set did not kill Dragapult, which is why we have to kind of look at it like that. The people designing the cards designed Dragapult, then in the next set they designed Centiskorch and Vikavolt. Dragapult's still fine. Then in the next set they designed Eternatus. So the way it affects us is definitely different. Yeah, the ban, so Gassy and Jay Mershon, I agree with you. So the ban does make Eternatus better, but it's silly to say that the bans were designed to make it better. They do make it better, but that's almost 100% not the purpose of the bans. I think the Rose and Empty Hand Mismagius Stamp Malamar VMAX is the combo they wanted to hit. I mean, wouldn't that have seen play in Japan if it was that good? That's my question. Like, Japanese players have made those kinds of decks before. They made the amulet, the challenge, Island Challenge Amulet coin, or whatever that card's called. Island Challenge Amulet, yeah. They made the broken deck with that like was unbeatable. Like, I feel like it would have been played if that was a thing. They didn't do anything when we had B-String. I don't think B-String was a problem. Get Celio a job at TPCI. I wouldn't do that because I want to play the game. Sorry. Although I have great ideas. Now, that's a whole other discussion, but if they would let their employees, like, play the game and talk publicly about decisions and stuff, that would be amazing. Well, Ozord, Crobat Dedenne, Mismagius could let you see a ton of cards with no supporter. I think that's the right call. Beloved Bryson Man was 100% wrong, though. So, Welozord, I like it. I would like it if TPCI was preemptively doing this themselves, but they're not. So, Pokemon Company Japan made this decision after they saw it not being affected by deck builders or players or tournaments or whatever they're having in Japan. Nobody made any broken deck with this combo. Mad that I bought a 4/4 Dragapult just to sell them. I would suggest just not buying cards until quarantine's over. Dragapult VMAX saw, I think it was like 1% of a 220 person tournament in Japan, so it's pretty scarce. I don't see the problem with preemptively fixing Mismagius, especially if they're reiterating it. It's just not tier 1 now. That's all. Lots of good decks never saw any play in Japan. Doesn't have to do well to create. Okay, so Mighty Anna has a fair point. It doesn't have to do well to create unfair game states and unfun experiences. So, Mighty Anna brings up a good point here. But here's the thing. I feel like it's out of character for the Pokemon Company Japan to realize that this was going to be a toxic problem, especially when it was available in their format and not being used. I feel like it's out of character for the Pokemon Company Japan to realize this, and then TPCI do the ban right away and give this reason, when the actual reason is because the Pokemon Company Japan made the ban and now they have to do it too. Like, this was an across corporation or whatever you want to call it. This was like both companies making the ban together. And I don't know. It just feels like fishy to me. Like, I don't feel like that's the reason. Hey Joshua, thank you for the gifted tier 1 to Team Abra. What's up? No begging for gifted subs, I'll ban you. Wait, T-Lackey's here? Yeah, but then why didn't we ban Marnie? Hashtag ban Marnie. Especially if they're releasing the fixes ASAP in Japan, and we'll probably have to wait extra months to get those. Yeah, so, like I said earlier, I would be, like, almost totally on board with the Miss Magius ban if we were on equal timelines. So, let's say that, Japan is 3 months out of Darkness Ablaze being released there. So, our Miss Magius ban would go into effect when we're 3 months out of the release. And then 3 months later, we get the new errated Belelba, or new errated Miss Magius, just like Japan's timeline. Because with us, it's like, ours is getting banned, even though we're 3 months behind Japan. So, you know what I'm trying to say? It's almost like, in Japan's timeline, they're getting the ban, which is equal to us if we got the ban in 3 months. So, like they say here, they want a global standard format experience, but it's hard to do that when Japan, well, when it's not a global standard format experience. It's just, we're banning these 2 cards. Yes, we should wait 3 months to get the ban effectively. Or something like that. Ideas for the text of the errated cards. I don't know. Because honestly, they don't say that it's errated on. Technically, it'll be an errata, but they say they're producing a new design and effect. So it could be something totally different. Now, this could also be translation, like, bad translation or whatever. But, yeah, it says new design and effect. So the design is the illustration, and the effect, obviously, is what the card does, I think. Yeah, I think there'll be a ban list for Expanded when tournaments happen again. If you've watched my Expanded bans video that came out a couple months ago, or maybe a month ago, you'll know that I think the format just has so many possible fixes and so many things to try. Like, there's a lot to be done, in my opinion. If Belelba was changed to Mill 2, do you think that would balance it? I don't think they're worried about balancing. I think they're worried about things that have little interaction or little ability to play around. And the way the Pokemon card game has been for years, there's always little room to play around what your opponent is doing. In my opinion. It's so much different than it used to be. Especially, like, back in the Wizards of the Coast era and also in the SP era. Summarize your hopeful bans in Expanded. I'd like Scoop Up Net to read it doesn't work on GX, V, or EX Pokemon. I'd like Milotic to read it doesn't work on GX or EX Pokemon. I'm not 100% positive how I feel about it working on V and VMAX, but definitely not on GX Pokemon. I don't think banning Ace Trainer would be the worst idea, but I don't think it's necessary. I mean, I think starting there, just change Scoop Up Net and change Milotic. We don't even have to ban anything. Stall and Mill is frustrating to play against, but it's like if you can either... It's like... Here's the thing, I don't want TPCI to start just... Or TPC, I don't want Pokemon to start banning things because people are crying. Like, it's the same thing like when Garbodor became good, but they didn't cry as much because Garbodor was taking prizes and not winning with an alternate win condition. People get really upset when you win by an alternate win condition and they can't do anything about it because their deck doesn't respect it or they didn't play around it. What about Shaman? Well, you stop Shaman from being able to be played 4 times in a turn. If without Scoop Up Net, Shaman will be played 4 times a turn max. With Scoop Up Net, you can play it 8 times. Like, that's insane. That's ridiculous. Or you can play the same Shaman 5 times. Yeah, Shaman, yeah, like Jolly said, like, Shaman allows Expanded to have a more aggro feel to it, because that's kind of what they want Expanded to do. They could just make Shaman a once-a-turn thing, but I don't think they would ever do that. So I fully believe that Shaman is the catalyst for a lot of broken things. So if Shaman didn't exist, then Trevnor wouldn't be as consistent. Just like they said here, they're banning Mismagius because Crobat adds more consistency. So I'm extremely happy that somebody at TPCI is acknowledging this, and I have a couple people in mind who like went into the reasoning and wording behind this, like, because there are people at TPCI that aren't just like corporate, like business type people. There are people that work there that have a lot of knowledge about the game. But yeah, Shaman EX is definitely a catalyst for a lot of toxic combinations and decks. But without Scoop Up Net, Scoop Up Net should not be able to pick up EX Pokemon. That's just, like, let's just agree on that, right? Like, it shouldn't be able to pick up EX Pokemon. They should have just made a blanket effect.